Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Here we go. Okay, so running a bit late today because it's been a crazy news day. So I'm not even done with a lot of my sidebars, so I'll just have to put them in post. But that's okay. That's a technical thing, so no fun sidebar action today unless you view the clips. But that's cool. Okay, so obviously we've got big news on Julian Assange. What happened? What is it? What are journalists saying about it? Is it an attack on press freedom? I'm going to talk about that all today. Then we have, of course, Donald Trump. Or I should say first, we've got Donald Trump being rambling and incoherent. That's fun. Then we have a representative going after Jamie Dimon using math and showing how basically little JP Morgan actually pays people. So that's a great story. Then we have Howard Schultz getting dunked on. Again, that's fun. I always enjoy those stories, and I'm sure you will too. Then we've got, of course, Bernie Sanders on Medicare for all. That's also a super important story. So we've got that as well. And then if we have time, we get to it, we will talk about AIPAC versus Bernie. So there we go. All right. Anyway, so now before we get into the show, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Helps out greatly. And mash that like button, please. And thank you very much. Okay. Enough of that. Let's move on. Let's start out with fun. And then, well, disaster. Okay. So Donald Trump recently had a press conference in Texas, and he began to, unsurprisingly, ramble incoherently about why we need the wall. Let's take a look.
If we had the wall, the good people will not be able, you'll see them on the other side of the wall, and people can, number one, they won't come because they'll say there's no way of getting through. Right now they think there's a way of getting through. And their people back home never hear about them. They start the walk that they think Houston's, half a mile away, but it's 300 miles. And it's desert. And I asked Mr. Powell, I said, let me ask you a question. When you do this, why aren't people around to help these people? He said, this is a vast state. It's a vast area. If you look at it, I mean, the state's tremendous. We don't see that. I come from New York, you have Fifth Avenue, and that connects to Park Avenue, and it's not too far away. But this is, hundreds of miles between places.
Hundreds of miles between. It's such a big place. It's a vast area. Big area. Lots of space. Nobody could have known that Texas was a big state. I mean, nobody could have guessed. Who could have guessed? There's lots of space. Okay. I make fun, but okay. That's not even the worst. So now he thinks, oh no, if I get a wall, that's going to stop people from coming over in the first place, right? The so-called good people, which is interesting because I thought he wanted to keep out the bad people. But now he's saying, it'll keep the good people out because then they'll be on the other side of the fence. But then they will actually come here. My God. Anyway, now, as far as keeping people out, will a wall keep people out? No, of course not. People can dig tunnels. We've seen that before. Or you could just fly over. Most people happen to fly over. But look, I'm not even sure exactly what he's trying to say. I mean, the people never hear about the what? I mean, this is the quote. People back home never hear about that. What? How big Texas is? I'm pretty sure we all know how big Texas is, if you pay attention. I mean, there's that saying, everything's bigger in Texas. And besides, as far as the the Texas being so big that, oh my God, San Antonio or whatever is so far away, or Houston's 300 miles away. It's such a big, vast area. They're just gonna go home when they find out how big it is. Oh, so you think somebody who walked from all the way from Honduras or El Salvador up through Mexico, thousands of miles, will be like, oh, dog, you know what? I guess I'm just not gonna go. It turns out Houston's a little bit more than a half mile from the border. Ah, it's a long way. No, that's ridiculous. I mean, come on. He makes absolutely no sense, but of course it gets worse, as I'm about to show you.
If we had the wall, and they're very expensive fences, but they don't want to go through the process of going through the fences, so again, they wait until the fence is open, the gate is open, they wait at the gates, and they kill people. And they want to take the truck. A lot of times they don't even want to go to the house, they want to steal the truck. So you always go to the gate in doubles. This has been going on for many years, and it's coming out. I'm bringing it out because we're bringing out what's happening with our border. And these people are coming into our country. Some are dying during the walk. Many of those people, I'll bet, are very good people. But some are dying during the walk. Many are dying. That was what surprised me. I said, well, how many? And one of the folks said, well, we had 7 in the last fairly short period of time. 7. I said, 7? That's one person. He said, no, they're all over the part of Texas that we're talking about. That means they're all over other places too.
What? What? I didn't understand any of that. And to go back, to give you a little context, there was a guest at the presser that said, I had 6 people dressed in black show up on my door at 5:30 in the afternoon. And immediately the president goes into, well, they want to get into your fence and they want to take your truck and then they'll kill you. What? What is this? What's happening here? What is he even talking about? And sometimes they don't even come to the house. They just steal your truck and get inside the. Then why would they knock at his door, or why would they just? He's lost his mind. He's lost his mind. He's sitting here rambling about fences. I mean, come on. And look, they still want the fences open, right? They're killing people, but they're also good people. Are you serious? Again, literally 15 seconds before. Or I should say the last clip, he was talking about how they're the good people on the one side of the fence, but they're on the other side, and they're not going to come here if we have a wall. It makes no sense. What are you talking about? He's mental. He's mental. I mean, he's losing his head, man. Like, even Fox News. Later on, Fox News, Dana Perino, in the middle of that presser, later on, she's like, yeah, we're just going to cut away. I think he's rambling again. And then she had to say, and this is great, oh, I think he's doing something very smart. No, you don't believe that. No, you don't believe anything that he's doing right now is smart at all. Look, even if you agree with his, I guess, position on immigration, his policy positions, right? No, you can't look at that and say, oh, yeah, no, that's a smart guy. He's got everything. I mean, oh, boy, his brain right there functioning 110% capacity. Smart guy, very stable genius. You can't say that. Not after watching this. I mean, somebody, please, invoke the 25th Amendment. For God's sakes, the emperor has no clothes. Okay? And apparently, along with it, no brain. We got to get him out of here. Jesus. Okay. All right. So now we get to Assange. All right. So earlier today, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was arrested. Now, after it was apparently revealed, not long after it's apparently revealed, the Trump administration had decided to pursue charges against him relating to a release by WikiLeaks. Now, the U.S. Department of Justice has charged Assange with conspiracy to commit computer intrusion for some reason, I guess apparently attempting to help someone break into a classified U.S. computer. I don't know. But what I do know is this is not related at all to Russia. So now I want to be very, very clear about this, right? This is not Russiagate. So now a lot of you might be saying, oh, wait, then what is it about? Then why does Assange been arrested? Apparently, this has to do with WikiLeaks publishing classified materials involving the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, of course, what was revealed by WikiLeaks, of course, is that the United States, our soldiers on the ground, were actually committing war crimes. So now, since that happened, of course, Assange and WikiLeaks have had a target on them from the United States, which was one of the reasons why he took refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy. And by the way, the Ecuadorian embassy just removed their protection under their new president. I believe that president is more conservative, or at least wants more diplomatic ties with the West. Now, not only that, but of course, one of the reasons that he also went into that embassy was rape and molestation charges from Sweden that were eventually dropped. And I think he was afraid that if I didn't go into this embassy, I would be arrested and extradited to the United States. And of course, today, that's proven to be true. Part of the reason that he was arrested was from an extradition request from the United States. So now, federal investigators are now alleging that Assange had engaged in a conspiracy with Chelsea Manning back in March of 2010 to steal these classified documents and communications in order to release the war crimes that they had found to the public. Now, you would think that that is in the public interest. I actually certainly agree that it is, but apparently the United States government disagrees. Now, they said he actively encouraged Manning to break into the U.S. Department of Defense computers to download classified information and transmit it to him for publication at WikiLeaks. And added that Assange allegedly agreed to help Manning crack a password stored in a secret Internet Protocol network, which would allow her to log on to the government computers under a username that didn't belong to her. Yes, that would be considered hacking, I guess. Now, according to alleged correspondence between them, Manning had told Assange that, quote, after this upload, that's really all I have got left. And he replied, curious eyes never run dry in my experience. Okay. That's an interesting statement from that. This kind of shows that, hey, man, look, if you want to continue to expose these government secrets, keep pushing on and we'll publish it. Well, again, I think that's fine. Now, if extradited to the United States, just on this charge of hacking alone, he faces a possible 5 years in prison. However, I'm of the mind where I believe that the United States will actually tack on more charges related to the distribution, to the release of these classified cables and files, documents. So now, here's what's maddening, right? Chelsea Manning, by the way, Chelsea Manning is again in prison because she refuses to answer certain questions, right? So now, she's still in prison. She had already endured imprisonment before, torture, and all that, because she saw war crimes happen, tried to report them up the chain of command. They were not interested in hearing about these. Nobody listened to her. She then decided she was going to become a whistleblower, leak to the press. So she went to the places like the Washington Post and New York Times. They were not interested in these stories. And then finally ended up going to WikiLeaks. Now, she went through all of that. And, you know, Assange, I should say, like him or not as a person, is also facing, I think, a similar event here for doing basically journalism, for releasing the information, right? So Chelsea Manning punished, Assange going to be punished, all for publishing this information. Now, the maddening thing about this is that nobody committing these war crimes saw any sort of action disciplinary against him. At all. At all. At all. So now where's the justice here? It seems as if you release information that is vital to the public interest, lets you know what the government is spending your money on, doing what they're doing in your name, our name, all of our names, right? And that, of course, is unfortunately killing civilians and killing medical personnel in what's called a double tap. Doing all that, well, we have a right to know what we're doing, what our military is doing on our behalf overseas, so that we can have some oversight, right? So we can actually stop doing war crimes, which increases terrorism. We have a right to know that. That is in the public interest. Now, that is supposed to be protected by the First Amendment, right? And unfortunately, now, this arrest, this has some major implications for the First Amendment. And that's terrible. And look, for those of you who are like, oh, I hate Assange, I hate WikiLeaks, they helped Donald Trump, and certainly, of course, what he did with the Hillary Clinton emails in 2016 did benefit Donald Trump quite a bit, right? And I talked about those emails and stuff, and I think that there was no problem in releasing those emails. But, of course, there are a lot of people who are like, oh, look at that. Say Trump, WikiLeaks. Trump loves WikiLeaks. Today, Trump put out a statement. I don't know what that is, WikiLeaks. He put out a tweet. I'm summarizing that, of course, but it's like, WikiLeaks, what? No, I don't have anything to do with it. I don't know anything about that. Are you serious? No, back during the election, you couldn't stop talking about how WikiLeaks... Oh, I love WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is great. You're releasing those Hillary emails. And then, of course, Donald Trump does what he always does. And when it's not helping them, he goes and he turns his back. That's what Trump does. Trump has no loyalty to anything but himself. So, and that's why, of course, he's not going to get a pardon, Assange. And that's actually the Trump administration. And mainly you have people like, well, when Jeff Sessions was in there, couldn't wait to go after Assange. And you also have, I'm kind of blanking on his name here, Mike Pompeo, thank you. I just ain't nobody. Mike Pompeo also pushing to go against Assange. And, of course, this goes along with Donald Trump also hating the press, right? So now, again, Obama, by the way, Obama had looked into doing this charge. He decided not to go forward with this because he realized, like, I can't go after Julian Assange without massively putting in peril the First Amendment, the freedom of the press. Donald Trump has no such qualms. Donald Trump hates the press. He hates free speech. Free speech and mainly the free press, right? And so, look, nobody who did these war crimes got in trouble. Nobody was held accountable. But they're going after these guys. They're going after Manning. They're going after WikiLeaks. And that is very, very telling of what the administration is actually interested in doing. So I do think they're going to add on charges of publishing these. And because, again, they hate the press. And Donald Trump, I think he's more than willing to commit war crimes. And people like, as I said, Mike Pompeo, John Bolton, more than interested in hiding possible war crimes. So, and you look at what they've been doing in Syria so far. I think they're probably on track to do more war crimes than Barack Obama. And, of course, they also supported Saudi Arabia and Yemen, who was starving the Yemeni people. So, look, this is what this is. Now, following this arrest, many prominent journalists have decided to speak out, including establishment journalists like Ari Melber. I know, shocking. Now, I want to give you a couple of tweets here. Ewan McCaskill says, U.S. did not waste any time putting in an extradition request for Assange. Terrible precedent if journalist publisher ends up in U.S. jail for Iraq war logs and State Department cables. Glenn Greenwald, writing for The Intercept, wrote, if you are cheering Assange's arrest based on U.S. extradition request, your allies in your celebration are the most extremist elements of the Trump administration, whose primary and explicit goal is to criminalize reporting on classified documents and punish WikiLeaks for exposing war crimes. He's absolutely right. And, of course, right on cue, you have somebody from the establishment near Tandon, who, of course, exemplifies this. Now, she responded to a tweet from Matthew Iglesias, who said, look, Assange sucks, but prosecuting publishers seems extremely dangerous and troubling to me. And so there are people that, yes, don't like Julian Assange for whatever reason, political, what his stances are, that he favored Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. None of that should have anything to do with whether or not you believe he should be arrested and punished. And so, but if you're near Tandon, however, no, she said, if the Chinese government stole your personal journal in order to silence your criticism of Trump and WikiLeaks published it on the internet, would you feel differently? Well, that's her argument. Well, that's a ridiculous argument. WikiLeaks published information on war crimes with the U.S. government. It's a bit different than your private journal. That actually is in the public interest. Doing, the government doing war crimes on our behalf. Nobody cares about Matthew Iglesias' private journal. But it always goes back to, of course, oh, but they published through Hillary's emails. And so we're just going to look at that because we're mad at Assange. We don't like this guy because he sabotaged Hillary Clinton, and we don't care at all about press freedom. That's what's going on here. Ryan Grimm, of course, responded to that by saying, this is a question, and the answer is clear. Publishers have a right to publish information in the public interest, period. If you follow this logic from Nira, the New York Times is criminal. And so am I, but I doubt that helps my case. And he's right. You go after the publishers of this information, then you're going to have to go after The Guardian. You're going to have to go after The Washington Post, the New York Times. Think Progress? Wait a minute. Think Progress is ran by the Center for American Progress. That's Nira Tandon's organization. But yes, they had published information that was gotten through leaks or hacks. So even Think Progress, the reporters there would be punished. I don't think you thought that through, Nira. And then finally, I want to go here from Jeremy Scahill, who said, the continued imprisonment of Chelsea Manning is an utter disgrace. The arrest of Julian Assange represents an extremely dangerous crossing of the Rubicon. This is an assault on journalism and a free press. All journalists should stand in fierce opposition. And that is true. You have a lot of journalists that are now standing against this. As I said before, MSNBC's Ari Melber said that this was disastrous. That would set a disastrous precedent. You have Cenk Uygur also coming up strongly. Glenn Greenwald, as I mentioned before. A lot of progressive journalists, and not just progressives, but everybody who actually cares about the free press. Washington Post even had an article that said that this was a terrible precedent and that we should not be arresting Assange. And so there are a lot of people that are standing up for press freedom. And look, again, this doesn't matter about how you feel about Julian Assange, right? Again, he's somebody who published his things about people in power that they don't want published. And right now to the government, especially as fascism starts to creep in, does not want. They don't want a free press. And so if you're going to take the side of Donald Trump on this and the Trump administration, then I think you're absolutely wrong. And if you think this isn't about punishing Assange for doing exactly that, exposing government secrets, then you are, by extension, on the side of the Trump government and all the governments to follow, fascist or not, who plan on committing wrongdoing and hiding it from the public. And worse than that, you're also aiding and abetting the destruction of the free press, of the First Amendment. This is both wrong and dangerous, and everyone needs to stand up to protect the First Amendment. And so, and by extension, in this case, Julian Assange. He may not be the one that you want for this message. He may not be the person you want to protect, but it's bigger than just him. It's bigger than Assange. This is the First Amendment. It is on the line, and we need to protect it. That is our fundamental right. Okay. All right, I'm going to take a break. We'll come back. We got Representative Katie Porter. We also have some other stuff as well. Howard Schultz, Bernie Sanders, a couple of stories on him, and maybe we'll take some comments. So please like and share the stream, and send super chats. I will read them after the break. We'll be right back. Round the Nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, Jeff Waldorf with you. So, yeah, I'm just kind of doing things in the fly today. So, I apologize for my unfortunate lack of preparedness for some of this stuff. But anyway, now I want to get to the next story here. But first, I want to thank everybody who, for watching, for joining the stream, and supporting Around the Nation. Definitely appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Okay. That said, let's get to the rest of the stories. Okay. A Democratic representative recently grilled the CEO of J.P. Morgan over the pay gap between executives and some of their lowest paid workers. And it was absolutely fantastic. Let's take a look.
She had $2,425 a
But
month.
they don't
She
wanna-
rents a one-bedroom apartment. She and her daughter sleep together in the same room in Irvine, California. She had $2,425 a month. She rents a one-bedroom apartment. She and her daughter sleep together in the same room in Irvine, California. That average one-bedroom apartment is going to be $1,600. She spends $100 on utilities. Take away the $1,700, and she has net $725. She's like me. She drives a 2008 minivan and has gas, $400 for car expenses and gas, net $325. The Department of Agriculture says a low-cost food budget, that is ramen noodles, a low food budget is $400. That leaves her $77 in the red. She has a Cricket cell phone, the cheapest cell phone she can get for $40. She's in the red $117 a month. She has after-school childcare because the bank is open during normal business hours. That's $450 a month. That takes her down to negative $567 per month. My question for you, Mr. Diamond, is how should she manage this budget shortfall while she's working full-time at your bank?
I don't know that all your numbers are accurate. That number is generally a starter job.
She is a starting employee. She has a 6-year-old child.
Okay,
This is her first job.
And you can get those jobs at a high school, and she may have my job one day. So
She may, but Mr. Diamond, she doesn't have the ability right now to spend your $31 million.
I'm totally sympathetic.
She's short 567. What would you suggest she do?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Would you recommend that she take out a JP Morgan Chase credit card and run a deficit?
I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
Would you recommend that she overdraft at your bank and be charged overdraft fees?
I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
So I know you have a lot
I'd
of...
love to call her up and have a conversation about her financial affairs and see if we can be helpful.
See if you can find a way for her to live on less than the minimum that I've described.
Just be helpful.
Well, I appreciate your desire to be helpful, but what I'd like you to do is provide a way for families to make ends meet so that little kids who are 6 years old living in a one-bedroom apartment with their mother aren't going hungry at night because they're $567 short from feeding themselves, clothing them. We allowed no money for clothing. We allowed no money for school lunches. We allowed no money for field trips, no money for medical, no money for prescription drugs, nothing.
Oh, damn. Get her again, man. Punch him again. Oh, I love to see that. Look, again, she's absolutely right. And he had no answers whatsoever for, I'd love to call her up and maybe have a conversation about how you can live below the minimum that you're able to live. Well, how's she supposed to do that, Jamie? What, get another job? Is that? Oh, and I love his answer about, well, I mean, it's a starter job. Kids get those out of high school. She look like a kid to you? Somebody in her situation? Does that look like somebody that's in high school? Come on, ridiculous answers. But, I'd love that. I'd love to help her. I'd love to have this discussion about her financial information. No, you know what he would probably do? Throw some bootstraps at her. That's what they always do, right? I mean, look, this is not a situation in which somebody can say stop eating avocado toast. She's $500 in the hole, right? Every month. And that's just from basic living expenses. One-bedroom apartment. A one-bedroom apartment with a small child. Got to pay for childcare. Got to pay for a car. I mean, if you don't have childcare, you can't go to work. You don't have a car, you can't go to work, right? You got to have a place to live. You have to be on a low food budget, right? Which is super low. $400 in that area. I mean, we're talking about eating ramen here. right? And again, this is in California where things are a lot more expensive. And so they've got no budget. There is nothing that they can literally cut from that budget that will help out. Now, I know some other things, some massive policy positions, perhaps, that would help out. For example, free childcare would help her out greatly. And also a higher wage. Now, she makes about $16 an hour. Again, she makes $16.50, working for Chase Bank. But, again, California, extremely expensive place to live. So what this shows is that even when you pay what to a lot of people, a lot of Americans would say, oh, wow, that's a decent wage, $16.50. How can you not live in that? You have to look at where they're living. You have to look at the costs in the area. And so those costs are, again, it's impossible to live on that amount of money living in that area. And so, and again, all Jamie Dimon can say is, well, I just want to be helpful. Well, you know how you could be helpful. How about you share some of that vast wealth with your workers? You make $31 million a year. I think you can spare a couple million to make sure that there are people that are working for you in your company that can actually afford to live. I mean, come on. That's not like, it should not be a big ask to pay your employees enough to where they can survive. Because that is not survival. And the fact that, of course, a lot of these billionaires, a lot of these people are so disconnected where they're like, I don't know why people are so mad. I don't understand. The economy's fantastic. Everyone in my social circle is doing incredibly well. What problems are there? I don't see any problems. I don't see any issues with wealth, redistribute, like with wealth and income inequality. I don't see the need for wealth distribution or redistribution. I don't see a problem. Everybody keeps telling me that there's a problem, but everyone around me in my social class tells me everything's great. What's the problem? Why don't you just get another job? Why don't you just cut some stuff out of your budget? Oh, and also, if you heard in the middle, towards the beginning of that clip, he also said, I don't think your math is, I don't think your math's right. Really. The guy makes $31 million a year. He does not have to struggle to figure out a budget. And so, who is he to talk about her math? And which, by the way, so he did talk about that, right? So later on, Katie Porter responded to that in a tweet, and she came with receipts. Watch. Look at that. I think she has got the math all figured out. Oh, is there a problem with the math? You know what? There actually is a problem with the math. The numbers that she has to work with don't add up. Why? She doesn't have enough money for them to add up. There's just not enough pay to help people like that young lady. So big props to Katie Porter for pointing that out. It was amazing to watch. And maybe, hopefully, Jamie Dimon learns something and starts paying his workers a better wage. Okay. Now we go from one out-of-touch millionaire to another, and that's Howard Schultz. All right. So presidential candidate Howard Schultz is getting slammed on the internet for attacking Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan. Now, the multimillionaire ex-CEO of Starbucks, who is running a hilariously bad campaign for president, recently put out a Medium post about Bernie Sanders and Medicare for All that said this. Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All proposal would strip health insurance coverage from more than 180 million Americans and cost taxpayers more than $32 trillion to implement. With no way to pay for it, no chance of getting bipartisan support in Congress, and the potential for significant ramifications in treatment and innovation, this proposal confirms what we already knew. Sanders and the far left wing of the Democratic Party are out of touch with reality. Being a leader requires making hard choices and being honest. Bernie Sanders' plan does neither and only serves to advance the far left agenda. Okay. So I love this in many different ways, ironically, of course. Okay. So, first of all, there is a way to pay for it. Bernie Sanders has already mapped out all the different ways and revenue streams that will actually pay for this piece of legislation. But I love how he says, "Oh, being a leader it means making the hard choices, being honest." Well, this is a flat out lie. These numbers are complete. Like this entire post is filled with fabrications. So much that is not true. And I'll point that out, of course. Medicare for All right now costs less than our current system. Our system is $35 trillion over the next 10 years, right? It's $3.5 trillion now, and actually it's supposed to grow to around $50 trillion in 10 years. So ignore the first part, right? Now, Medicare for All would cost about $3.2 trillion over the next 10 years. That is by itself. And a lot of the mistakes that a lot of people make, sometimes willingly, is that they'll add the $32 trillion on top of what we already spend, which is completely disingenuous if you're doing it on purpose, and deeply ignorant if you're not. Because that's not how it works. It would completely replace the system. Now that gets to the other argument of, well, it's going to throw 180 million people off insurance. No. Okay, so there will be health care, right, to replace that insurance. So you don't need the insurance anymore because you've already got health care. You already have health care guaranteed through the government. You will have a government insurance plan. That is actually better. So, no, nobody's losing their health care, and he's being completely dishonest and, ironically, not being a good leader or not demonstrating that he would be a leader at all. Because he says, I don't know, you know what? I'm not going to lead with any sort of plan. My plan is status quo. My plan is basically lower taxes on myself or keep taxes low on myself. Well, that's not being a leader at all. So now, obviously, this did not go well on the internet. He got ratioed real quick. And I have some of the fun responses here. Child of the Vault says, they would move to a better system designed to cut out the middleman. All the middleman does is deny people care so that Aetna, Cigna, etc. CEOs can receive $1 million bonuses. 40,000 Americans die annually due to lack of health care. You hate Americans and have no desire to save their lives. Damn. Medicare for All Mike Hirsch tweets out, actually, not one person will lose health care under Medicare for All, but millions will gain guaranteed health care. We know better, so why not tell the truth? Roars says, Howard, serious question. Who ties your shoelaces before you leave the house? Winko the Bernie Bro tweets, I was just starting to miss ratioing Howard Schultz here, or Howard Schitz, but now I honestly want him to just go the F away forever from politics. I hear you, man. Muscovy Beast says, what is it with billionaires and being stupid? Ash, the fake doctor lady, says, no one cares about losing their health insurance, Howard. We just want to be able to see our same doctors and get our meds without going broke. Take my Blue Cross, AmeriHealth, whatever. Just let me see my primary care provider, and I'm good. Well, that's what we all want, and that's what Medicare for All will actually give us. The ability to see our doctor, to keep our doctor, and not have to worry about being in network or doing co-pays, deductibles, etc. We just simply have health care. Alex Koch says, seriously, guys, how did someone so freaking dumb run a really successful company and make billions of dollars even though its coffee is pretty gross? Some might differ with that, but I generally don't go to Starbucks anyway. The Humanist Report tweeted in, no, it wouldn't. You goddamn moron. 100% of the population having health care doesn't constitute as losing anything. Even people currently with insurance would gain healthcare stability, which they currently lack. Shut the F up about politics and stick to making burnt coffee. Damn. Lefty Desiree McLeftyface tweeted in, that makes no sense, Howard. If we have Medicare for All, everyone is covered, and no one needs their existing insurance policy, is what I was saying earlier, and what every single pundit seems to ignore on cable news. Michael Oman Reagan tweets, "This might be the dumbest thing I've read today. Medicare for all would literally cause 100% of people to have health care." Awesome. Alt U.S. Press Secretary with a great tweet as well. "Why is everything you say..." Oh, hold on. Let me start that over. "You're a Republican cloaked in independent rhetoric. Why is everything you say an attack on a Democratic policy and never a Republican policy?" That's a good question. "And by the way, they're not losing coverage. They'd be transitioned into Medicare, which we already had, which already exists, polls at 77%. And so all we would have to do is use the existing framework of Medicare and expand it." Now, they also point out, hey, if you want to plan with an option instead, we've got that. We literally have the Center for American Progress and centrists now coming out with supposed Medicare for All Extra, which isn't actually Medicare for All because it keeps private insurance. And basically, it's nothing more than your standard public option plan, which would have been great back in 2008, 2009, or before. But that's their plan now, and it would give you an option to stay with private insurance, which that is not single payer. Single payer says the government is getting rid of health insurance companies, and so we are going with a single payer, the government. All right. And finally, Bushido Squirrel Overton Window Installer, which is like, by the way, the best Twitter handle ever, says, "Honestly, retire and give away all your money." Also, probably the best tweet. And you know what? If Howard Schultz were to give away all of his money, that would actually help society, unlike his ridiculous presidential campaign. I mean, imagine being the guy who looks at various studies about how Medicare for all would save us trillions of dollars, for one, while delivering great health care that covers every single American, man, woman, and child, and how it polls at 70%, and then thinking, you know what's a great campaign strategy? Being against that. No. If you think that way, you might as well be the dumbest person alive, or, alternatively, completely out of touch and basically looking to save money on your taxes, which I think Howard Schultz is probably a combination of the two. Okay. We have more Medicare for all stuff. So let's go to the next story. Okay. Let me get the video right this time. Yeah, hold on a second here. Okay, there we go. So recently, Senator Sanders sat down with CBS News' Ed O'Keefe to talk about a lot of different things, but the subject that came up mostly is Medicare for all. Now, look, you can tell most of the establishment media are skeptics when it comes to this policy, and during the interview, we ended up hearing a few establishment talking points against the proposal. Now, that includes the claim that Medicare for all would cause people to lose their health insurance. Now, while Senator Sanders was explaining the difference between Trump's claims of the GOP being the party of healthcare and his plan, that this happened. Watch.
You know, the president has now said that he wants his party to be the party of health care.
I know.
Have you considered doing some version of this that you know would get some semblance of Republican support?
But right now, look, let's be clear. The president wants his party to be the party of health care. Unfortunately, apparently, what he means by that is throwing 32 million Americans off of the health insurance they have.
But isn't that what your plan would do, too? Because you'd be moving them into Medicare for all? I mean, if they have insurance right now...
Wait a minute, wait a second. President's plan and what he has supported throws 32 million people off of health care. No alternative. We provide health care to every man, woman, and child in this country. I think maybe slightly different concepts. We guarantee health care to all. He throws 32 million off of health care.
Off of the
slightly
Affordable Care
different.
Act.
Off of the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
And they have no alternative.
Okay. No, I love the reaction. What? No, don't start with that BS. All right. So now look, this is the attack from the establishment, right? And from the right wing. If you go with Medicare for all, I mean, you're going to lose your health care. They're going to take your health care away. Then you're not going to have anything. But wait a minute. It's called Medicare for all. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, who is buying that ridiculous argument? Are you going to lose your health care? Or you're going to lose your insurance, even though you go with a Medicare for all, which automatically replaces your coverage with insurance. But what if you like your insurance plan? What if you like your current doctors and all that? Well, good news. You're probably going to like Medicare for all better. First of all, no deductibles, no copays, no networks, no charges for seeing a doctor that's not in your network. No, you go in, you have insurance. Doesn't matter who you are, man, woman, child, doesn't matter your income, etc. You have health care. You go into the doctor, you present your Medicare card, and you get health care. Wow. That sounds fantastic. And so much better than the ridiculous headache that we see. Like, if you go to the doctor now, you got to fill out insurance forms, and you got to go to billing, and sometimes you have an out-of-pocket cost, a copay, and then first you got to pay your deductible, which, depending on your insurance plan, could be $1,300 or $1,000 or $2,300, whatever, right? No, get rid of the headache, get rid of the BS, the crap, and actually go with a Medicare for all plan. And look, again, the people that have insurance, sure, they might like their insurance, like, oh, I got, decent copay, etc. Well, guess what? You're probably really going to like not having a copay because it's better. It's a better system. But see, here's the thing. This is a desperate argument. And I say that because this is literally them being so afraid of this idea that they are willing to fearmonger about it. Again, we saw this back in 2016 when Chelsea Clinton was lying about this, saying, oh, you're going to lose your health insurance through the ACA because it's going to destroy the ACA. No, it's going to replace the ACA with a system that already exists. That system is Medicare. and again, the only thing that you're going to be losing is a middleman whose whole purpose is to siphon money from you to put in their own pockets. Who likes the middleman? Who's interested at all in this middleman? I'm not. And look, here's the thing. If you compare Bernie Sanders' plan with Donald Trump's, again, he doesn't have a plan. Donald Trump doesn't. If you try to compare those two things and say that they're the same, you're doing journalistic malpractice. And look, I say that because Donald Trump doesn't have a healthcare plan. Now he says, oh, it's going to be tremendous. We're going to have a fantastic healthcare plan. It's going to be the greatest. Well, what is it? What's your plan? I don't know. Because he doesn't have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. They didn't have one, by the way. The Republicans, even before Trump, didn't have a plan for years. And then, of course, when they had to, they scraped something together that most Americans hated. Even members of their own party hated this, voted against it because it was so bad. It pulled 30%. And to say, oh no, that's the same as Medicare for all. A plan that guarantees health care to everybody based off a system that actually already works in America, Medicare, which is incredibly popular, pulls at 77%, and is inspired, by the way, to expand it, like the systems in the UK and Canada that do work, that cost half as much as we do per capita here in America for our healthcare system, which is for profit. But also, Medicare for all improves upon those. And in fact, according to, there were certain Canadians that were talking about this, and I don't have a citation right in front of me, and I apologize for that, but they were saying, look, if this passes, this is going to be better than the Canadian healthcare system. It's going to be more comprehensive. It's going to cover more things, and it's going to actually end up being better. It'll be the envy of the world. Imagine our healthcare system being the envy of the world. Could you imagine? And as far as the media is concerned, unfortunately, calling it even, calling it 100% neutral, and not being honest and throwing out those ridiculous questions, that's what's wrong with the media these days. And so, look, they've got a right-wing framing on this issue. They're not looking at the facts. They continue to spread pro-establishment propaganda. And Bernie Sanders, he ain't got time for that. He's going to shut it down Because guess what? He knows that the American people can no longer wait to get health care. We need Medicare for all. We need it now. Okay. That's all I got for you guys. I still cannot get to the APAC story. So, sorry for that. Keep running out of time, unfortunately. But thank you guys for joining me anyway. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Appreciate it. Also, consider going to our Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, supporting the show. Really, really help out if you could do that, because we can't do the show without you guys. So, all right. Anyway, thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, Nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow on the show. By the way, members, if you sign up for Patreon, I know I should have said this before, but members get the show ad-free, so you can see all my screw-ups tonight. So that's fun. Even the trolls could take a Jeff out of context moment and put it together and put it online. And this will help you do it. So sign up, patreon.com/TWTNation. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow around the nation.